On July 18th, experience extraordinary music under the stars. Join Madison Opera for Opera in the Park, a free concert in Garner Park featuring the best of opera and Broadway. Opera in the Park 2026 takes place at 8 p.m. on Saturday, July 18th. The rain date is Sunday, July 19th. Pack a picnic, gather your friends, and join Madison Opera to celebrate 25 years of this magical night. Learn more at madisonopera.org. This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today, an update in the governor's race. The sheriff's announcement that part of the controversial jail project can't go on as planned. What's going on with the cancellation of the Mad Lit series this year? Plus, in our special Neighbors Only segment, rare art from a late UW-Madison alum will be donated for a Sotheby's auction to support student scholarships. Joining me now to talk about it all is our executive producer, Hayley Sperling. Hey, Hayley.
Hi, Bianca. Happy Friday. It's such a stacked lineup.
It's a seriously stacked lineup. It's lit. We're going to talk about it. And before we get into today's show, though, we've got a hot recommendation for you. It's summertime, which often means travel season. If you're going to be at an airport this summer, you won't want to miss the latest episode of CityCast's national podcast, Your City Could Be Better. That's hosted by our CEO and noted podcaster himself, David Platts. Every week on the show, David talks to hosts from across the CityCast network and special guests about bold experiments cities are trying. This week, David is talking to Scott Keys, the founder and chief flight expert of Going, formerly known as Scott's Cheap Flights, about what makes the perfect airport. If any of you have been flying, you know it's crazy these days. They dig into which airports are the most accessible without the excruciating traffic, which airports you actually want to show up 2 hours early for your flights, and some of the weird but endearing local touches that some airports use to represent their city. I'm looking at you, Denver. If you know, you know. And if you don't know, come find out on Your City Could Be Better. Listen on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, or watch on YouTube. You can also check out the full catalog of episodes at yccbb.citycast.fm. That's fun one. yccbb.citycast.fm. Alrighty, now let's fly back to Dairyland and talk about today's news. Hayley, you've got our first story, an update on the governor's race. Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley is out. What happened?
Yes, this was pretty big news that came through this week. Crowley is out, and he has put his support behind Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, following in the footsteps of Missy Hughes, who did a similar thing not too long ago. In a statement about his departure from the race, he said, quote, "It has become clear that I will not be the Democratic nominee for governor. So today I'm stepping out of this race, but I'm not stepping away from the work. Politics should not be about who talks the loudest. It's about showing up, working with anyone who wants to solve the problem, and delivering results people can see in their own communities." So, nice statement there. According to reporting from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Crowley was considered a top contender to win the primary early on in the race. He jumped in and posted the highest fundraising amount in January, but that was kind of his peak.
How things have changed. So what happened after January?
Yeah, things changed pretty quickly. Crowley just couldn't keep up the momentum and just couldn't gain the traction to come out ahead of the primary's current frontrunners, who include former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, State Representative Francesca Hong, and also now these days, Sarah Rodriguez. Interestingly enough, as the Journal-Sentinel also points out, Crowley was the only candidate in the running who had previous experience overseeing a large budget and a large staff, which is something that's like pretty tantamount and relevant when you are running for the state's highest office. So interesting to see that happen there. In terms of where this leaves us, there are still 5 candidates in the running. As mentioned, Barnes, Hong, and Rodriguez are considered the frontrunners at the moment, but State Senator Kelda Roys and former Secretary of the Wisconsin Department of Administration, Joel Brennan, are also still hanging on in this Democratic primary as well. Bianca, we just had Kelda Roys on the podcast to talk about her campaign. I'm curious, what did you take away from that interview? Did anything stand out to you?
Yeah, I feel like she was Eminem poised and ready.
She was.
Like she really was poised and ready. She felt very comfortable in speaking on her experience. She feels like she has the most experience out of all of the other Democratic candidates who are still in the running. It really focused on healthcare and affordability and schools. Yeah, she feels fired up and ready to go. And she's got the receipts for what she's accomplished in her years in the legislature. And it was a really good conversation.
Yeah, I definitely recommend folks checking that one out. Like I mentioned, Cal DeRoy's and Joel Brennan are very much still in this race. They've said previously that they wouldn't be in it if they didn't see a path to victory. So I think we can kind of expect people to be holding out here. But as we know, things change so quickly here. And we're going to be interviewing hopefully all of the candidates this month too. So stay tuned for more coming from us coming up.
We got some more stories just around the corner, but we do want to hear from you. What is the biggest issue you care about in the governor's race? What is the issue that's impacting your life most? That's going to, make you sway for one candidate over the other? Let us know. Text us or leave us a voicemail on the CityCast Madison line at 608-318-3367. We love hearing from you, and we do want your true thoughts about this governor's race. Hit us up, and we'll be getting to more stories in a moment. But first, let's take a quick break. All right, it's time for our weekly segment, Banking Outside the Box with Oak Bank, with the sponsor of this episode, Oak Bank. It's your opportunity to get your banking and financial questions answered by an expert.
Hi, I'm Jim McNulty, Senior Vice President at Oak Bank, and this week's question is, how can a banker help a business grow and not just manage money? You started your business with a dream and a whole lot of hard work. Maybe it was a storefront, a service, or just a really good idea that you believed in. Somewhere along the way, you grew and had to start asking some harder questions. Do I hire another person? Is it time to expand? Can I afford that new equipment? Should I buy that building I've been renting? All of these are big decisions, and you shouldn't have to figure them out alone. As a community business banker, my job isn't just to keep your bank accounts in order. I work to be a true partner that is in your corner. I take the time to actually learn your business, understand where you want to go, and help you put together a plan to get there. Whether that's a line of credit, loans for equipment, expanding or buying a building, or just an honest conversation about your options, I'm here for all of it. At Oak Bank, we're your neighbors, and we believe that businesses in this community deserve a great banker who's just as invested in their business and their success as you are. Let's sit down, talk about where you've been, where you're headed, and how we can help get you there faster. Reach out to us at oak.bank to get started.
Huge thanks to Oak Bank for sponsoring this segment. If you've got a banking or financial question, hit the link in the show notes. You might even hear it answered in an upcoming episode. All right, so we're back and we've got some news from the county. I'm bringing this story. Our Dane County Sheriff Calvin Barrett announced this week that the county will not be closing the city-county portion of the Dane County Jail. This is a big deal for a lot of reasons and has a fair amount of history behind why. Basically, TLDR, closing this part of the jail was identified as a top priority in county talks for building a new jail to match our current needs and future goals around incarceration. Those conversations have been happening for decades. And in recent years, actions were taken, plans were made, votes were had. The goal was to both shut down this pretty terrible part of the jail, which is unseemly, and we're going to talk about that more in a second, but also to lower the overall amount of jail population in Dane County. And how to do that was specifically by moving towards reducing racial disparities in policing, lowering incarceration rates via, re-looking at low-level offenses, like who needs to be in our jail. And now we're hearing from the sheriff that the county still needs those beds in a pretty problematic part of the jail. And critics say not closing the space is a renege of that promise. Hayley, how are you reacting to this news? Me personally, it's hitting pretty heavy. It feels sad.
Yeah, it is hitting very heavy, but in a very real way, I'm glad we're talking about this again. Like, this is a huge story, and it has been for many years. Like, we do not have the time to go through all the back and forth that this jail project has been through because it would take hours here, right? It sucks that we're back here, but I do think it's something that we need to look at.
It honestly, like, I wish that I could say it's been on my mind, and the fact that it hasn't is kind of indicative of the problem that we have around incarceration. I'll also say that I spoke with Sheriff Barrett on the podcast back when the Dane County Board approved the jail project in 2022 and the funding for that, as well as then Dane County Board Supervisor Dana Pelabon, who was leading these talks around like what needs to happen for the jail from the county perspective, from the Black Caucus perspective at the county. And those are like really helpful. They gave me my first understanding of this space that is very, very disturbing and identified as kind of unconstitutional. Hayley, can you talk about like how bad it is?
Yeah, I mean, Sheriff Calvin Barrett, like in this Cap Time story, he literally calls it disgusting, right? Like, it's not a pretty sight in any sort of way. The county jail was originally built back in the 50s in 1953. And it really hasn't been updated since, which has left it dangerous and what the sheriff's office has called inhumane. Like, it literally has lead pipes and asbestos. Locks get stuck. That is a huge safety concern. And there's issues with medical access for rehab programs. So, like, jail allegedly is supposed to be a place where people get rehabilitated and then come back into society after committing a crime. But, like, being put into this environment and being left there for, I don't even know for what and for how long in these conditions, like, I cannot imagine that this is going to accomplish the purpose of that rehabilitation. It's kind of scary. It's really scary.
It's big news because this new jail was and is a major investment of tax dollars. It's in the likes of hundreds of millions of dollars. It's been very controversial on how we move forward, what plans we should go with, what contractors. These discussions have been happening for years, and then they made a plan. And to hear, a few years down the line that they're not going to stick with this part of the hope to shut this down is pretty concerning. I think the elected officials working on this like have really their heart in the right place. Like, I think the goal was to shut it down, and it is causing some, a moment for folks to need to look closer at what's happening, why our jail numbers, like why we still need these beds. I think the stated goals of having a humane space that is actually mired in a hope for rehabilitation is the goal of the sheriff, is the goal of the Dane County Sheriff's Department. And I'm sure what it seems like, this is not news that they wanted to be delivering.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like anyone is happy about this, to put it pretty lightly. And like, there's not a whole lot of space for us to move forward here or to really move forward with a plan that anyone is going to be happy with. But that's also kind of the situation that we were in back in 2022 with this compromise. Like, this is not really a move that anyone was happy with at the time. And, like you said, Bianca, the Black Caucus, like, really pushed forward in getting people to think about, like, why are we asking for more beds? Why are we preparing to put more people in jail? Why are we not looking at the bigger systemic issues at hand? And why are we not actually focusing on rehabilitation, which is a huge argument of like abolitionists in general, which is super important to think about. But it's also critical to think about, like, this is an immediate problem, right? Like, this jail facility in the city county building is in immediate trouble. This huge building project is still years away. Any sort of systemic change still takes years. And so I literally said this on the podcast before this, like earlier this week when we were talking about childcare, but I'm like, once again, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place over the immediacy of our needs right here and now versus the idealistic version of our needs and wants of what we could be. So curious to see where this one will go, as with every story.
Yeah. And it was fascinating going back and listening to those former conversations with the county sheriff and with now former Dane County Board Supervisor Dana Pellebon. I actually saw her, post online, in response to this news saying, we have been committed to criminal legal reform on the county board while I was there, and just asking and calling out, like saying this fight needs to be picked up, that incarceration and arrest rates are holding steady despite the programs to divert people. And we've heard this from the, Madison's police chief, that Madison's not more dangerous. Crime's actually decreasing. But why are the incarceration numbers not changing? So looking at this and where our money goes, where our investment goes, it needs to still have a critical eye as we chart along. And yeah, it's a sad piece of news, but an important one. I think that's all the juice in that lemon for now. We do want to speak with the sheriff in the coming weeks and try and learn more about this and what happened. But in the meantime, we are going to get to more news and first take a quick break. Some tough news dropped recently for a beloved Madison concert series and its fans. Mad Lit will not be happening this year on account of lack of funds. But why? We want to know what's going on there and what this moment means for the series. Joining me now are two of the best people to give us the scoop, Mad Lit's top champions, founder and Madison artist Rob Dees. Rob, welcome back to the pod.
What up?
Sup. And Karen Reece, who is co-president of the Urban Community Arts Network with Rob. Karen, hi.
Hi, great to be here.
Yes. Okay, so we kind of know what's happening. Rob, you created this series, right? And for folks who don't know what it is, can you share briefly what's Mad Lit and why you started it before we dive into the news of what's happening?
Mad Lit is an event series that features music, art, as well as small business vending, centered around the idea of focusing on Black and brown folks of color, to really make a more inclusive downtown scene. Downtown, we'll just say it hasn't necessarily been the most welcoming experience for a lot of folks of color. So we really wanted to make it a point to really make that known that, people are welcome here, or provide a touristy kind of aspect to someone who comes into town is looking for folks that look like them. We wanted to kind of try to be that anchor of that. So that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, and I read the news. It sounds like because of changes to a grant program, the city has stopped funding the event. And I'm sure that's pretty disappointing news to have to deliver.
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, I mean, it's more disappointing than anything, to consider the fact that the town talks about the work that needs to be done. And for 5 years, we were pretty much able to fill that void pretty accurately. To not get to continue support was definitely a disappointment.
Yeah, I read in the Isthmus write-up about this. It said that last year the series drew about 12,000 people over 4 Friday night concerts, which is pretty tremendous. Karen, you and Rob lead the nonprofit that helped get Mad Lit off the ground 5 years ago. You're a partner in crime. You are right in this. How is this hitting you, and what happens now? Can Mad Lit carry on in other forms? What are we thinking?
Yeah, Mad Lit will definitely be coming back in 2027. So anyone who does festivals or nonprofit work knows that funding is always a challenge. The city of Madison having about 50% of the funding for the event is important because the city has been dedicated, or saying it's dedicated, to equity in music and entertainment for a long time. We had a task force in 2019, and one of the recommendations from that task force was to have a hip hop festival in the city. And so Mad Lit was kind of fulfilling that recommendation to the city. It's pretty expensive particularly the sound and the stage is one of our highest costs. So to have something outdoors and to make sure it's technically excellent so that the artists that are performing on stage are heard and there's no glitches and the audience can fully enjoy it is really important. And then, of course, we really want to make sure that we're paying the artists that perform a wage that represents their professionalism and the contribution, the time and expertise that they're bringing to the stage. So those are all the things that really go into the budget. So this year, because of the loss in funding, our team, which is almost 100% volunteer, decided that the smartest move, rather than trying to throw something together, the smartest move would be to just step back and recalibrate and come back stronger next year.
I mean, that makes sense. I hear you guys, and I'm curious, what do you think the loss is for not having it happen this year? Like, just so all interested parties could know.
Yeah, the loss, I mean, obviously is, as Rob was saying, not having the strong representation of Black artists, brown artists, artists of color in our city's downtown, and also not having as many Madison residents of color, people coming down, patronizing State Street businesses. We won't have that this year. So it's also a big loss on the people who appreciate our series revolves, mainly around hip hop culture. So there's hip hop music, other music, R&B, jazz, neo soul that comes into play. And those kinds of music don't really have a home in Madison. So they do get booked on certain stages at certain venues, but they don't have like a dedicated venue to that music. So losing Mad Lit means that a lot of those artists don't have a place to perform this summer as well, which is a big loss.
Yeah, it's such a shame because it's hip hop. We need that in
Yes, we do.
city. I want to ask both of you, Rob, and I'll start with you, and Karen, I'll come to you next. But like, broadly speaking, how can the community support Mad Lit and Madison's Black and brown artists moving forward this year and also into next year?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is start with the intentionality. Like, we have to really say that this purpose, that if we really want to preach a diverse and inclusive community, then we really have to be intentional about that inclusion. So, I mean, and I can't speak for venues or anything like that, but I'm just saying, intentionality with calendars, making sure there's representation involved, in some of the bigger agencies, making sure, putting pressure on them, not putting pressure, but making sure that they are upholding the charge as well, and including more representation in their calendars as well. So
You're talking
I
about
think
like the Live Nations.
Yeah. Or the people that have more of the say so than us, At least if we're not able to do it, we want to make sure that we hold the feet to the fire that other people are doing.
And if we're looking at the music community, people that go to shows, enjoy live music, I think the biggest thing is, I know money's tight and, there's a lot going on for everyone, but it really is important to make sure that when you see an event, you get out there. If there's, an issue with money, maybe reach out to the organizer and see if there's anything that can be done, or encourage friends and family to come to these events. That's how we show venues that there really is a need for this sort of thing. It can be really difficult in Madison because of all the ups and downs that we've had with this type of music and venues, because every time we get something good going, it seems to always either, fall off for lack of support or get canceled. And we are seeing a rise in cancellation of events happening again with hip hop related events in downtown Madison. So beyond the community supporting, which they always do a great job, is really just a shout out to the people that are running venues, the decision makers, people involved in Downtown Madison Inc. and the Central Business Improvement District who, own these properties and run these businesses. There's a real opportunity here for those folks to take a proactive step in making sure that we have those diverse calendars that are popping up. It really does come on to the people that own the property, have the resources to kind of step out of the way and allow room for people who are really trying to do this work. And that also includes making sure that any kind of unconscious bias, implicit bias, racial bias that people have, that they make an extra effort to come to terms with where that comes from. Because, there's heavy stigma out there related to hip hop, but we have the data, UCAN collected the data, and we know there's absolutely no difference in the level of police calls or violence that happens with hip hop shows. That's an absolute myth. So really just making sure people support America's most popular culture in our hometown venues.
Yes. Oh my God. So many good things were just said right there. And what is clear is like, we need to circle back and have another conversation soon to get into that data. Cause you guys really are putting that effort in to be like, look, this is what's happening. This isn't our imagination. And it's tough to hear. It feels like we're at a place we've been here before. We get something going. It's also very successful, but somehow we have to pause and that sort of frustration. One of the things that has been bringing me joy, and I know we've been talking about on the show for a second here. And Rob, I have to kind of turn to you about something really awesome you did in the community. We've been excited and hyping up your concerts on the square moment where you joined the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra among other talented artists for their 4th of July concert. And that was this moment where hip hop was included in also the national narrative of America and who we are in Madison. And we just got to ask, like, how was it? Like, give us the goods.
I guess there's a number of ways to look at it, but like for me as an artist, I felt like there was an assignment, there was a responsibility, and there was an obligation as far as being included in that fabric of what is America. So, I was honored to be considered for it. And I think we stepped up and we knocked it out the park. So that's it. That's all.
Yeah. And I heard, Karen, you were there, so you can attest.
It was absolutely amazing. I mean, it was a dream come true, and it was kind of a culmination of years of work and trying to make sure that hip hop is respected in the city and embraced on all stages. And so this didn't just happen. I mean, this was about 4 years of conversation and collaboration with the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra to get to a place where we could make this happen.
Okay.
And it was very intentional work with the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra and their leadership to make sure they've been working hard on having more diverse, rosters for their summer concerts anyway. And so to make sure we had local hip hop, not just with the orchestra, but like original compositions created just for this performance so that Rob can walk up to a harp leading him in, backed by a full orchestra. And so it just really speaks to all of the hard work so many people in this community have put in to bring this hip hop scene and hip hop culture legitimacy and respect in this city. And this was just kind of a shining moment of all of it. And I'm just so, so proud. And of course, like Rob had to be the one to do this first performance for so many reasons, but it was just so inspiring and absolutely amazing to be part of that.
Hey, can I just echo and say one thing? Referring back to what Karen just said about the chamber orchestra and their intentionality. I think that this is a case in point of when intentionality is authentic, then you see the sky as the limit for the community. So I think that this is just, it's just a proving point, and that's why it was such an honor to be able to do it.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm feeling the pride. I had pride, and vicariously, like, I've heard from so many people how special that moment was. And yeah, grateful to see it. And I hope that it opens the door for more of that because it was really gorgeous. So Rob Dees and Karen Reece of the Urban Community Arts Network, we're really appreciative of you coming on the show and giving us an update on Mad Lit and this ongoing effort to put some respect on the name of hip hop,
Yes.
America's art form. Thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Thanks for having us.
All right. It's time for our neighborhood shout-outs this week. I'll take the first one. Catherine PM, her shout-out is for Capitol View Farmers Market on the Far East Side, right by the East Side Great Dane. Yes, we know where that is. So this Wednesday evening market, which is from 3 to 7 p.m., has great local vendors, live music, food carts each week, and great green space, the City View Park, she highlighted, to chill and catch some amazing Madison summer sunsets. That's a dreamy recommendation. Like, really, frankly, all I want to do is eat fresh food and watch the sunsets in Madison. That's been my summer vibe so far.
I mean, what is more Madison than a sunset and a farmer's market? I mean, you definitely don't get that at the big Dane County Farmers Market, which we love. We do love, but we also love our little neighborhood markets. And I feel like these are really good spaces for folks to really connect with their neighbors, find their community, like these are the people who live in your area and who want to know you.
Yes. And Hayley, speaking about food, you've got the next shout out.
Yeah, these shout outs are making me hungry today. This one comes from Emmett N, and it is a known entity to me. Emmett is shouting out curry in the box. They said great Thai food and the owners are lovely people. I'm sure they are. I love that. I love their curry. Love that it comes in a box. Alrighty, we also have a new neighbor to shout out. This is super exciting. Welcome to the squad, Harris T. We are so stoked to have you with us. Thank you. Thank you for supporting CityCast Madison.
Yes. Well, I know we do the pew, 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 but I kind of want to boom, 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 boom. That's like some good hip hop.
Yeah, maybe Rob Dees can record a track for us.
Yeah. Yes. Welcome, Harris. That is awesome. We'd love to see you guys joining us. This is a beautiful thing, being a CityCast Madison neighbor. If you want to get in on the squad, become a neighbor, give shout outs on the podcast, and share your own, head to membership.citycast.fm/Madison. You'll get those great perks and more, like ad-free listening, member exclusive events and emails, and you'll hear our neighbors only segment on this podcast. That's actually coming up next. And we're going to be talking about how the estate of acclaimed designer and UW alumnus Virgil Abloh is auctioning off several rare screen prints from the visionary artist to benefit UW. Again, if you want to hear that and get those other perks, become a member today. Head to membership.citycast.fm/Madison. All right, Hayley Sperling, that's our Friday News Roundup. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bianca. This was a blast, honestly.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. We're produced by Jada Siri Ramos. Katie McMurran is our post-production producer with help this week from Laura Sitsui. Hayley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Additional music by Wendy Marchini and Sarah, the instrumentalist from Epidemic Sounds via Getty Images. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. Don't forget, you can get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to the CityCast Madison newsletter. And you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm/Madison. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who loves and supports local musicians? Alrighty, see you back here Monday morning with more news from around the city. Until then, thanks for listening, keep it groovy, and have a wonderful weekend.